Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now, we know Fuji have recently announced the new Instax Wide Evo as opposed to the Instax Mini Evo like I've got here. Now, being an avid instant photographer, there's a lot of things that I'd like to see them do with the Wide. So let's have a look at the announcement and see how they got on. And having a look down the page, got the intro video showing us all the different camera effects and all the different light leak effects. And as like with the Mini, we have 10 lens effects and 10 film effects, though they are slightly different. I think we've got this new one called beam flare, which you can see there, the color gradient, color shift we had, double exposure we had, light leak, which there's a few more variants of. Light prism is a new one, monochrome blur, soft glow, vignette, then back to normal. And on the film side of things, the normal one, amber, light green, magenta, monochrome, sepia, sky blue, summer, vivid, warm, and then back to normal. So most of these appear to be fairly similar to on the Mini, though they appear to have just renamed them slightly rather than just calling them the blue filter, the red filter, the yellow filter. They've actually called them like summer or something like that, which is okay, I guess, but nothing too spectacular there. And we've got the new dial now, which lets you adjust how much of that effect you want, which I think is a good thing, because on some of the effects on the Mini, they're a bit over the top and you want to dial them back a bit, but you don't really have an option for that. So that's one thing I do like about this camera. And we're talking about the lens. The Mini has an equivalent of a 27-28mm lens on 35mm, whereas the Wide Evo has a much wider field of view, which I will check if it will let me. Which I believe is an 18mm, but I'll put up on screen if that's different. And there's a toggle switch for having wide angle on and off, but that toggle is effectively just a digital crop, so you just get a smaller sized image when you take the photo. So it's up to you whether you think that's worth it or not. And then the design is good. I like the design. It looks interesting. It's not just copying the Mini Evo. It is doing its own thing. One of the things that I'm not sure about is this winding crank. I haven't seen on the reviews whether it's actually like manually winding the film out or if it's just literally just a crank and it's a button effectively like is on the Mini. So we'll see. There you go, see here on the screen we've got the print crank, and it seems to suggest, looking at the sequence that the images show, that it's effectively just like pushing a button and then it prints it as normal, so you're not actually having to crank the print out, which we have seen on some instant cameras before, but not anything recent and not anything especially good. One of the funny features this time, obviously, is advertising that lens cap as a feature. Now, on my Mini, I have obviously bought a third-party metal lens cap there. And I feel like a lens cap is really necessary. A lens cap's necessary for all cameras, really. You want to protect your lens. You don't want any scratches or anything like that. And assuming that the Wide is the same as the Mini, the lens itself is just little plastic coating, which is easy to scratch. As usual, we've got the selfie mirror. The selfie mirror, which I feel is mostly useless on these cameras. They're too small for my liking. You see on the Mini, we've got the selfie camera there, and it's just no good at all. And the field of view, I suppose on the Wide, the field of view is going to be wider, so that's not too bad. But on the Mini, the field of view, if you've got more than one or two people in batch selfie, then you're going to be cutting them out. Now that we've had a look through the options on the website, I'm going to scroll down and we're going to have a look at the specifications. So as expected, obviously it being a Instax Wide Evo, it uses the Instax Wide film, which is great to see another Instax Wide camera that's not the 400. Obviously I haven't shared my thoughts on the 400, but I think it's a bit of a disappointment, and I want more control over my shots, especially when the latitude on Instax film is so narrow. So looking here, we've got f2.4 aperture. Obviously, there's a fixed aperture, like with most camera phone sensors. Like the Mini Evo, the Wide Evo is just it's a tiny little sensor, and you can see down here it's 1/3 of an inch sensor, which is approximately 16 megapixels, I believe, what people have calculated. So it's a big jump up from the 5 megapixels of the Mini, but with film being that much larger, you need the extra resolution. However, with the sensor being so small, 1/3 of an inch, it's going to suffer from the same issues as the Mini in that it's poor light sensitivity and poor dynamic range. So moving up, you can see on the shutter speed, we've got the usual and ISO up to the maximum of 1600, which again is a little bit disappointing when you've got a maximum aperture of only f2.4. You'd ideally want to get up to 3200 ISO for sort of nighttime shots, really, and where this camera is meant to shine, which is in a party setting. As you can see, both of these are labeled as automatic switching, which means that there is no manual control over it, none at all, which is very disappointing. Again, you pretty much prefer to have some sort of manual control over the shutter speed. Really, I find that the Mini tends to underdo the shutter speed a lot, and then you end up with blurry photos, and it's just no good at all. Down here on the lens, you've got a 16mm 35mm equivalent, so very, very wide lens, and autofocus from 10 centimeters to infinity. I'm not sure if people are going to be using the macro mode on this. I don't feel like it's very useful, but there we go. And the flash, obviously we've got a few flash options, the same as on the Mini Evo. However, the thing I hate about most of all on these cameras is the flash. It's a real letdown on the Mini Evo. It's just a tiny little LED. It's not very bright, and it slows down shooting a lot. If you've ever tried to use it, it'll pre-fire the flash to get an exposure, then fire again. Now, the double flash means that half the time your subject looks away after the first flash, and it's just not bright enough for good. I like to see a proper xenon flash like you have on the compact cameras of yesteryear. And I think for the price, so we'll go back to the top, so you see the RRP £320, although you are getting a printer with this effectively, it's just a bit too much for the camera's capability. Now, it's like shooting with a very, very poor digital camera from the early 2000s, like one that was bad in the early 2000s, not one that's bad now, it was bad 20 years ago. And it's just a disappointment, really. What I would love to see is them to put, a half decent sensor, not talking APS-C or anything like that. Fuji has made lots of wonderful compact cameras over the years. I'd like to see them use one of those compact cameras as a basis for the Evo line of Instax cameras. Now, if you paired a slightly better sensor with, a moderate size zoom range, something like an actual mechanical zoom, not digital zoom, actual physical zoom lens, something that's the equivalent probably like a 28-50, 28-70, something like that on full frame, then you've got a much, much more capable and useful camera where you don't end up wasting shots. And obviously you don't necessarily need to waste your prints, but when the camera is so slow and takes so much time to process everything, you miss shots because you take a photo, it does a poor job, you need to try and take another one, but by the time the camera's reacted, it's like 2 seconds later and you can't shoot quick enough. So hopefully that's something that they've improved for the Wide Evo, but considering the type of sensor and the market that they're going for, I don't think that that's really the case. So overall, what's my opinion? My opinion is give it a miss. It's not a good enough camera to warrant it. If you want an Instax Wide printer, just get the Instax Wide printer and pair it with your own phone. You'll get better photos and just as good prints. The only advantage of having the Wide Evo, and the same with the Mini Evo, is that you're going to be able to crank that lever, or in this case, wind the lever, and give the print out straight away rather than having to mess around on an app. connecting to the printer to give it out. It's faster, but the quality suffers because of it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed my thoughts on the Instax Wide Evo. I'd love if you leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you like the idea of it? Or are you going to reserve judgment until it comes out? Feel free to drop a like and subscribe as well. That would be great. And I'll see you next time. Bye.